Before we get going with the interview, I want to offer you a free ebook from Corporate Alliance about becoming more referable. Basically, it's along the lines that everybody knows word of mouth is the best form of advertising, but that there's a secret to get people to refer more business to you, and that most of us are making it unintentionally too hard for contacts to help us. So what this resource goes through is this idea of how to become 10 times more referable. You can get it for free on their website. If you go to corporatealliance.net/ebooks, you can download it for free. Again, corporatealliance.net/ebooks. Welcome to Leadership and People. This is a series that pulls back the curtain on leadership by interviewing CEOs, senior executives, and entrepreneurs who've had large exits. We ask these experts about how they built trusted networks to rapidly grow their companies and what advice they wish they knew if they could do it all again. This is part 2 of our interview with Rob Brough.
But if you come in, Jess, and you interact with someone at one of our branches, or you interact with us online, and your experience is counter to that, if your experience is that, wait a minute, yeah, you say you haven't forgotten what keeps you in business, but you've certainly forgotten me, because that's not the experience I'm having. Now we've created a negative brand experience.
So, Rob, thinking about this positioning of Zions and being where everyone is, you get these comments of, I see Zions Bank everywhere, and you guys get those, that kind of benefit of top of mind, owning the customer mind type of dominance as far as any of the local financial institutions. When it comes to developing your people internally,
yes,
what's your philosophy? Because it's obviously a whole department that works with you to get this done. What's kind of your approach to having everybody around here be able to really understand what's the go no go decision of where Zions should be seen?
Sure. It's an interesting question, because if you were to ask them, they might give you a different. I hope not. But we talk a lot within our group about the fact that our job, at the end of the day, our job as a marketing group and a communications team within Zions Bank is to create an environment in which the bank can be successful. So that becomes really our guiding principle. So anytime we're making a decision about an advertising strategy or a communications strategy or a sponsorship or partnership or community outreach program, the first question we're asking ourselves, whether we verbalize it in every meeting or not, but what is in the back of our minds is what we're about to do going to create an environment of greater success for the bank? And that can be defined a lot of different ways. Sometimes you define that as, okay, we can measure it directly and say, we brought in X number of new checking accounts, or X dollars in new loans, or X number of new credit cards, whatever that direct product measurement could be. But most of the time, it can be measured, and I would argue should be measured maybe a little differently, because a number of the things that we do maybe aren't as directly attributable to that. And I'll explain what I mean by that, because at its heart, financial services is, the product itself is not all that differentiated between us and our competitors. A checking account or a credit card or a loan product, the product themselves are really not that different. So what's the difference? So what makes the difference? Well, we believe that one of the things that makes that difference is that when someone is making a financial decision in their life, who are they thinking about? Who comes to mind when they're making that decision? Who's in that consideration set? So I may not know, for example, Jess, even with all that we can do with technology and data today, we have a lot of data that might tell me that your next most likely product in financial services is a home equity line of credit, for example. So I might know that about you, but what I don't know is exactly when you're ready and have that need for that product. And so what our job is from a marketing standpoint here at Zions Bank is to put Zions Bank in your consideration set. So we're trying to create that environment in which the bank can be successful by putting in your mind Zions Bank. However we do that, and that's done in a variety of ways. The other thing when we talk about creating this environment for success or creating an environment which the bank can be successful, what we want to do is create an environment that any of our officers, whether they're a commercial loan officer, they're a private banking officer, they're a branch manager, whatever their role is, that they can, in essence, knock on any door in our community, and that individual, that organization will have a conversation with them because of what that organization or that individual feels about Zions Bank. And there's a real reality. Back to what I was saying back in part one of our conversation, banking is a very personal business. Banking is a very local business. And so when someone from Zions Bank approaches someone and says, I'd like to talk with you about doing business together, we want people to say, yes, we're open to that conversation because of what they know and what they feel about Zions Bank. I hope that makes some sense. But
yeah. Well, and it's obviously, has to be matched with the marketing, maybe get them in the door, and the experience once they get there has to be matched.
Totally,
right?
Totally.
And, you talk about your experience with Scott as, well, you think about like those Richard Branson sayings about take care of your staff so well, they'll take care of your customers. Right. And, it sounds like there's that example from the top, for you.
Yes.
When you think about that and you think about how your leaders are going to interact with, whether it's the folks who are interacting with the customer or how your leaders are going to interact with the folks out here who are designing the marketing to get them in there.
Yep.
What does that look like? How do you help that level of care of what you're experiencing from Scott? How do you help that get the next layer down for your managers looking at their direct reports?
Well, I guess what I would say is I just try to do what Scott does, in terms of, I am trying to communicate with them consistently in terms of what we're trying to accomplish. I'm then in communicating to them what we're trying to accomplish, I'm allowing them latitude to create within what we're trying to accomplish. I'm not one who, and Scott isn't one that often says, okay, this is what we need to accomplish, and this is exactly what, this is exactly how we're going to get from point A to point B. It's more setting that vision and saying, here's where we want to go, and let's work together to find out, to determine how we best get from here to there. So I think that's really, really critical.
So following this train of thought, in your mind, what is the benefit to the customer experience that the person interacting with them gets that kind of latitude?
Well, I think the benefit is that when you give the person who I'm interacting with on my team, if I'm giving them latitude, and again, it goes all the way down to the front line, when they have that latitude, the way they treat the customer, I think changes dramatically. Because if you feel like you're being dictated to, like, this is the process, this is how we're going to do it, even if somewhere along the line someone really felt like this, we've done all this research and this is exactly how it needs to be done, for that person who's standing in front of the customer day in and day out, if they're not bought into that, so it wasn't their idea, and they may be saying in their mind, well, that may be good in generality, but I'm dealing with this situation now with this individual that's totally outside of that, and if they don't feel like they have the latitude to make a decision on their own and to meet the needs of the customer's need isn't going to be met. And we've been talking about the Zions Bank brand and the things that we do within the marketing group to help build that brand and create that environment in which the bank can be successful. That's only what we do in our group is only, frankly, a small part of what the Zions Bank brand is. The Zions Bank brand is the experience that people have with us. Because the reality is, from the marketing side, we can deliver that promise all day long. We can say that we haven't forgotten who keeps us in business. But if you come in, Jess, and you interact with someone at one of our branches, or you interact with us online, and your experience is counter to that, if your experience is that, oh, wait a minute, yeah, you say you haven't forgotten who keeps you in business, but you've certainly forgotten me, because that's not the experience I'm having. Now we've created a negative brand experience, and we should shut off all of our advertising. We should quit making that promise because, again, I would argue that not only have we wasted the money, we've done something that's detrimental to the brand because we've said your experience is going to be this way, but your actual experience with us is different. And so back to maybe your initial question about how empowering people and giving them that latitude impacts the customer experience. Again, I firmly believe that when you give people that freedom to make decisions, now they own those decisions. They own that process. It's theirs, and the way that they're going to deliver that to the end user is significantly enhanced.
Yeah. I want to take this just a little different direction.
Sure.
So you think about the position you've got. I mean, we're in this awesome corner office with great view, right? And to reach this level, big, $16 billion entity. There's so many folks who, they're thinking about marketing in university. They're wishing someday they could be in a position like this. And yet there's so few that really get to this level. What do you think you did different? Or what do you think were some of the things that helped you reach a level that not many do?
Well, I don't know that I put myself, in any great position of, authority or responsibility. I just feel grateful to have been able to work for a great organization for 21 years. But I would say that one of the things that I have done is that I'll say two things. One is that I have kept all of my options open. And let me tell you what I mean by that. If you would have asked me coming out of school, what industry I would end up spending my career working in, if I had made a list of my top 10, banking would have been number 12 or 13. It just would not have been on the list. In my undergraduate studies, I intentionally avoided things like finance and accounting, and because it just wasn't an interest of mine. But what I did do when I came out, again, keeping all the options open, after I'd worked for a couple of years for the communications firm, and I was looking for that next opportunity, I had a good friend of mine who was working here. She was the communications officer. She was leaving. She said, "It's a great company. You ought to consider coming to work for Zions Bank." And again, I thought to myself, why would I want to go work for a bank? It just isn't on the list. And it would have been very easy for me just to dismiss it and say, you know what, that just isn't what I'm looking for. I'll look for another opportunity. But because she said it's a great company to work for, you ought to consider it, I thought, okay, I'll give it a try. And then I went through the interview process, and as part of that interview process, I recognized some opportunities that maybe existed here at Zions, and the growth that Zions looked like was about to begin embarking on. It just presented itself as a great opportunity for me. And so I would say it would have been easy for me to close the door on this opportunity. And along the way, then people talk about being in the right place at the right time. I think that's really only a very small part of that equation. Yes, it makes a difference, and I feel like I've been in the right place at the right time in a number of occasions, but you also have to be the right person at the right place at the right time. And so that leads me, I think, to maybe the second thing that I've tried to do, and I have this conversation with my employees often, is that I wasn't always necessarily looking for what my next opportunity was. My focus, whatever job I was in here at the bank, was how can I do that job better than anyone's ever done it before, and how can I make sure that I'm accomplishing everything that needs to be done within that role, so that when the opportunities for growth and advancement presented themselves, that whoever was the one hiring for that would say, he is the right person. This is the time, but he is the right person at this right time. So
what does that look like? Being the obvious choice, taking, okay, this is my job. I'm not going to sit around wishing I had something else. I'm just going to knock this out of the park.
Yeah.
What does that look like for you?
Well, it looks like two things. One, it looks like, you're not sitting in my office every day saying to me, hey, you know what? This is what I want to do next. This is what I want to do next. And I say that, and I'm careful because what I'm not saying is, I'm not saying don't have a vision for where you want to be, but don't be sitting in my office every day saying, okay, well, I know this is what I'm doing today, but what I really want to be doing is that. So what do I have to do to be okay, let's have that conversation once. And so I understand where you want to go, and let me help you develop a plan for getting there. But what I need you to do today, I've hired you to do this today. And if you can knock that out of the park, if you can just nail that, and we can have conversations along the way about what future opportunities are there for you when those opportunities come. And I'm fortunate to work within an organization that we don't have a lot of turnover. And so but we create opportunities for people by helping them grow within their current roles. And as they continue to do that well, that prepares them for when that opportunity does present itself. It's an obvious choice for me to say, you know what, Jess is killing it here. We've had discussions. He's ready for this. Or I just think that that's what it looks like. And I think too often, if I see mistakes being made, it's that
they're not
individuals.
present.
What's that?
They're not present. They're
Yes,
not doing their current
they're
thing.
not present. They're so focused on what the future might hold for them, or what future opportunities should be there for them, or what they lose sight of. I have a job that I've been hired to do, and if I do that better than anybody's ever done it, or if I do it better than anybody's currently doing it, that opportunity will be there for me. And I've experienced that in my career, where in my interaction, in my relationship with Scott, it's been about, what can I do to do my job exceptionally well, and not worry about where that next opportunity is going to come, because it's always come as I've tried to do the best in what I'm doing currently.
Yeah. How do you think things change when you're at the highest levels? There's a lot of folks that would talk about something like this, but there's obviously fewer that do it. But those few that do it are the ones who make it up to the higher levels in organizations and in entrepreneurship and business in general.
Yeah.
In your mind, when you get down to like the very small percentage of the workforce that are in those top leadership positions, how does life change in your opinion? What's different about?
Yeah, I think there are a few things that change. One is obviously your view of the organization changes, only because, sitting, as a member of the executive committee now, my view is much broader than just marketing. The view is broader, and I think with that though then comes the responsibility that I feel like I now have to share that broader view with my team, or at least give them a sense for how what they do fits into that broader view, so that their view of the world isn't just this tunnel vision of what's right in front of them. It is, okay, how does what I'm doing today impact the broader vision? So that's one thing. I would say that I think that the other thing that's changed is that there are more eyes on you, and what I do every day, I feel like there are more people watching what I do, not in a negative way. It's not like people are watching to try to catch me in doing something wrong, but there are more eyes watching me to say, okay, where are we headed as an organization? And I'm not at the top of the organization. That's Scott, but being right there with him, I think there are more eyes on me and my colleagues on the executive team, just watching to see what we're doing, because they'll take their lead from what we're doing in terms of, if we're positive about the future, if we are energetic and enthused about where we're going, and if we are innovating, and if we are being creative in what we're doing, I think they will follow. They'll do the same thing, and so there's more. I don't know if I'd use the word pressure, but there's certainly more. There's more eyes on us, and I feel that, and I also feel like, what I do now is, as opposed to, several years ago, most of my time and most of my day is spent in, strategic discussions about where we're headed, what we need to do, and then dealing with people-related issues. So I don't have as much time as I used to, and I miss it sometimes, on the actual hands-on execution of, the marketing efforts that are happening at the bank. It really is more about having conversations and discussion about the strategic direction, where we're headed, and then it's, dealing with the employee-related issues of leading and managing a team of people, and I've recognized that having an E in front of my title, executive vice president, allows me to maybe knock some barriers down that others on my team may be running into, and so that's, I think, part of what's changed too. Is I sometimes see that my role is to help clear a path for my employees to be successful in what they're trying to accomplish, what we're trying to accomplish together.
I love it. Well, we've kind of got time for maybe one more question here. I want to go back to this theme, this idea of throughout your career, this like, whatever my role is, I'm going to reach a level of excellence at this.
Yeah.
We all have undulations in life,
Sure,
the roller coaster,
sure.
and sometimes we're more bold and more intense, and other times it's not there as much.
Yeah.
Anything for yourself or any advice for other folks who they recognize, yeah, that is my personality. I am a go-getter, but they recognize maybe they're at a lower point of the roller coaster,
Yeah.
and they want to get back on the horse, and they want to go back at that full speed they used to be at, or whatever.
Yeah.
Any advice for getting back on the horse and riding hard?
Well, we talked about this a little bit earlier, and maybe I'll see if I can relate it back to getting back on the horse and going hard. But to me, it is that consistency, And yes, we're going to have challenges, we're going to have struggles where we fall off the horse. Yes, we're going to have times that in our personal life things are a struggle and a challenge, and if you think you don't bring that to work, you're dead wrong. Because the reality is that the lines today are more significantly blurred between our personal lives and our work lives than ever before. They really are one and the same. They just are. I'm convinced of that. We bring it all with us. But I think there's something to be said for the consistency of our attitude. And for me, if you ask me on a day when things are just not going great, and someone asks me a question, "How you doing?" I'm still going to say, "You know what? I'm doing awesome." And part of that is for me is to say, "You know what? In the grand scheme of things really are awesome." And as we project, I believe, as we project that positive attitude, and we just are consistent in exhibiting that attitude, and I'm not saying that you're not being truthful, or that you're not being, because there are times when someone says, "How you doing?" and if it's a close friend, I'll say, "Look here, gosh, I'm really struggling here," and we can have that conversation. But my team doesn't need to hear every day that things are really tough. Gosh, things are hard, and we all know people like that who that when it doesn't matter what the situation, you ask them how they're doing, and it's things are so tough. I think there's something to be said for that consistent, positive attitude that I can do this. I am happy. This is what I want to be doing, or I know where I want to be going, and I know where I want to be, and I may not be there today, but that attitude of I'm going to make this happen. If you have that attitude, it will happen.
I love it. I think that's a great place to end.
Okay.
Hey, thanks so much for spending time with us here.
My pleasure, Jess.
Hi, my name is Logan Wilkes, and I'm the CEO of Corporate Alliance. A few years ago, I moved to San Diego to build a new market for us there. The biggest deterrent I had to success was I didn't know a soul. I often thought to myself, if I just had a thriving network or influence, this would go 100 times faster. To be honest with you, I had never felt so alone in my life because A, I didn't have an influence, and B, I didn't know anyone that was going through the same thing that I was. If you have ever felt like this and you are looking to grow your influence, join us at one of our upcoming events. You can check us out at corporatealliance.net and request an invite to one of our upcoming experiences.